I think we just need to put out thousands of robots. I think 100 is just a beginning, and I think it's not about us only doing it. I think overall for the manufacturing industry, by the way, the robots are new. Okay, this is the first time manufacturing sector is buying any kind of automation which goes anywhere in the plant. Typically, automation has a place where it stays. There are trained and approved personnel who interact with that automation. Okay, and that's not changed for the last 150 years of manufacturing, or I would say automation kind of manufacturing may be 100-year-old or whatever, right? That thing has not changed. With these vehicles, this thing breaks for the first time.
Hi, wherever you're joining me, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to my India Tech Reports In Conversation podcast, bringing you insights from entrepreneurs, investors, industry leaders, and other stakeholders in India's deep tech and climate tech ecosystems, with the occasional segue into other areas of tech entrepreneurship. I'm Hariharakli, and my guest today is Saurabh Chandra, co-founder and CEO of Ati Motors, an autonomous mobile robots venture in Bengaluru. In this conversation, Saurabh talks about how the robots are coming, and millions of them, changing the industrial manufacturing landscape forever. He talks about Ati's own family of robots named Sherpa, some early engineering decisions that have stood the company in good stead, and how Ati can go from shipping hundreds of robots to thousands and more. We also briefly touched upon lessons from building a deep tech robotics company out of India. So Saurabh, thank you for doing this. Really appreciate your time. And I've been wanting to do a bit of a deep dive into Ati Motors and the robotic deep tech that you all have been developing for quite a while. For a general audience, maybe you could start with just a quick intro to what Ati Motors is all about, and then I'll have some follow-on questions.
Sure. No, thanks so much, Hari. Very, very glad to be on your podcast this time. So this is fantastic, and we are in our dev shop at Ati Motors. So you will see all kinds of open stuff and scrap around. But yeah, but glad to be doing this. Ati makes mobile robots for material movement in factories specifically. So we've been around for 8+ years now. Started with the thought process that we would bring the autonomous driving kind of technology adapted to the industrial environments. And that's kind of what we did. Our approach was very different from a lot of other folks in this field, where we had 3D LiDARs, we could go outdoors, we could perform in the rain, handle ramps, bad roads, etc. And really do very rugged environments. And shop floors are pretty rugged, and I think that's where we differentiated ourselves from just doing, say, warehousing, which were nicer environments. There was a lot of traction of mobile robots in warehousing, but I think shop floors were still struggling to adopt this technology, and I think that's where our contribution in this field has been, that we have been able to make them actually work with now more than 50 customers actually worldwide.
When did you ship your first product? If I recall right, it was just around when COVID was beginning to hit.
Yeah. So 2020, I mean, we shipped it in like January or February. By February, we were kind of deploying it, and lockdown happened in March. So after that, we were kind of stuck for like a year roughly. And then in the meanwhile, we did some experiments in, trying to figure out if we could run in a hospital, in a COVID ward. We tried a greenhouse in Middle East. We did a lot of experiments during COVID, but post-COVID we came back to the original thing. And the first customer itself who we bought another vehicle. So I would say really kick-started from January 21 after that, because of the break that COVID forced us into.
Who was your first customer? Can you talk about that?
So I can't name the customer per se, but it was a very large customer, multi-billion-dollar organization, etc. And they had a factory which was pretty harsh. Harsh as in the floor had like a lot of imperfections in it. at some places almost like potholes, very dark, winding paths, very congested, heavy payloads. And that was something that was very tough for most mobile robots at that time. In fact, they had been trying to get people to just do a demo. The feedback we had from them was that once salespeople would come and see the conditions, they would not come back with a demo, right? So we really, I think, were able to perform in these kind of places, and that I think made a lot of difference because it's, I mean, one can always do happy paths. You can always have very nice lab-like environments where you would do well. The problem in the real world is all the 10,000 edge cases which come from, and when people say real world issues, these are the kind of real world issues, right? I mean, you will have, I mean, magnetic interference from, say, very heavy duty motors in the capital equipment running next to the thing that can cause an interference. I mean, something as simple as that, right? Or in one of the places, we had a lot of fine particulate matter in the air, which would keep getting stuck inside stuff. In some places, we have had iron fillings, which have gotten, which have had a problem. We have been in environments where there is carbon and sulfur in the environment in which the vehicles are running. So there are all kinds of stuff in harsh factories, which in many other environments is not a problem at all. Right, so I mean, typically when you see YouTube videos and all, they are of nice, clean, swanky kind of places, and many things work there. But even there, we have seen that we outperform typically the other stuff because we are so used to the very harsh things that, I mean, maybe some of the other people handle the 10 exceptions that are don't handle 10 exceptions. For us, those exceptions will reduce to 1 or 2, right? So that's something I think because we started with our assumption, and we don't put a lot of demands on our customer. We don't go to them and give them a checklist of you need to have all these things perfectly on order before we will give a robot to you. We will tell them bring it on. we'll see it as a learning opportunity. Harsher the better. Actually, we are very happy to go in harsh environments and see what will happen. Can we figure it out? What product improvement should we do to make it survive in these places? So that's been kind of our approach.
And again, just to give, and it's nice background of a workshop which we are grabbing. I'm really happy about that.
Yeah.
In the typical podcast, people want everything quiet, but I love the ambient sounds of people in their work environment.
Sure.
Okay, so coming back to my point, I was just going to say that to give our general audience a sense of actually how sophisticated these robots are, you have always designed them to be able to go where you need them to go on their own, right? There's no fluorescent strip or no magnetic tape or
Absolutely
none
not.
of those things.
Yeah. Not just that, in fact, many of the traditional AMRs also, I mean, you don't see any strips, etc., but there are tiny reflectors in places you cannot see them. Okay, there are QR codes in places which are not in the camera shot of the video that you see. We don't have any of it anywhere at all. Okay, so there are no tiny reflectors, there are no beacons, there are no QR codes, nothing is there at all anywhere. All we have is the natural map that we have taken. There is no handoff to a person hiding in a room doing teleops, right? So that is also common. I mean, most of the sidewalk robots, people are very impressed, but all of them have a person doing teleoperations at critical parts to make sure that they work, okay? So they look very magical from the outside because you don't know the ghost behind the machine, so to speak, right? There's no ghost behind this machine. Everything is in the machine. All the autonomy is happening on the stack. Nothing's happening on the cloud also, right? So we do the full autonomy stack on the machines in real time.
So have you eliminated the teleoperator or?
We never had it. Actually, that was a good design choice that our engineering team did. Frankly, I said, why not? I mean, initially it's okay. And the approach typically is that, and I thought it's a pragmatic approach, to be honest, right? My own first intuition was that there will be a lot of exceptions. Maybe at an exceptions, a teleoperation can take over. Over time, you can reduce those teleoperations and then it will go away. But I think our engineering team actually said, if we do that, it will be a crutch that we will never leave. So let's just not do it at all from the beginning. If it fails, let it be a failure that we need to fix, rather than there being like some. So it took maybe longer to ship because of that, but I think that attitude has now benefited us I know many other startups who started with this approach and have never been able to wean off the teleops at all. And, and teleops is always an issue. Connectivity will always be an issue. Factories are in very remote areas. Even in US, we are in factories where 4G is not available. Can you believe it? Right? So we think 4G, 5G is ubiquitous. Even in advanced countries, it is ubiquitous in dense environments. Factories are typically out there, remote, and even if it is there generally in the area, inside the factory, you will have black spots because you have so much metal everywhere, right? So you will not have the right kind of a thing. Even the Wi-Fi communication will not be as good. So you will have this intermittent kind of stuff, and that always causes an issue. So I think this was a very I would say a little hard choice to do. It took us longer maybe to get out because of this, but I think this has been the right engineering choice that we made very early on.
So now tell us a bit more about your products and the variants. Your current flagship family is called Sherpa. There are multiple variants. So walk us through that.
Sure. So we started with the autonomous tugging product, and we're the strongest in that category, I think, worldwide. We have multiple tugging variants. We do anywhere from now 200 kg to 3 ton already, and soon launching a 5 tonner also. So we have a very wide range of tugging options for our customers. Apart from that, we have other variants which do, for example, we have a product which kind of like a tray top, very compact, small product. I think one of the most compact AMRs in the industrial space, like just 400 mm wide, where you can carry bins, or you can put a conveyor on top, etc. We call it the Sherpa roller top. So you could put a conveyor, move conveyors between, move bins between conveyors. That's another product we have. We just recently launched our pallet mover in the market. So we do ground-to-ground movement as of now on our pallet mover. So we can do 1 ton pallets. I think soon we will do higher payloads also, but we can move them ground-to-ground inside shop floors. And this is something which is now taking us a little bit on the warehousing side also, because pallets are very common even on the warehousing side. Something which is distinguishing us on the pallet mover is, again, these are I think once you focus on a particular market, interesting stuff happens. With our pallet mover, we sometimes also move large trolleys, because that's a thing. People use these hand-operated pallet trucks to often move trolleys inside factories also, and we do that customization. Our AI engine gets customized for a particular customer's trolley, and then we can detect it and pick it up automatically. So the pallet is there. I told the bins, and that's how we think about it. Like we do, I mean, we think of what we move in terms of what the customers need to move, which is trolleys, bins, and pallets, right? And we have product lines aligned to these things, right? So trolleys anyway we do with the tugging product. The bins, as I said, we have the bin mover, etc. And now the pallets we are doing with the pallet mover. Pallets also get moved with, we have what is called as a lifter, which is the traditional AMR. We have kind of made that SKU as the last one because it was a crowded space. There are a lot of people who make that kind of thing, but we wanted to also make sure that our portfolio is complete, so to speak. So we now have a lifting AMR also, with which people do different kind of things. Sometimes they will lift carts also, where you go under a cart and lift it, or you may pick pallets when you put pallets on a stand. So you cannot pick them from the ground with this product. You have to pick them from a stand. So these are the products. Another interesting SKU we have is called the Sherpa Pivot, which we reuse, which we have created such that it can be, we can make a lot of variants around that. So the 2 variants that we have around that are our 500 kg tugger is actually the pivot modified as a tugger. So it's a very compact tugger that we have created. And we have what we call as a monofork, where we can go under a small dolly and pick it up and take it out, right? So we have a pretty wide range of product portfolio right now.
Are you comfortable saying how many units you have shipped today and which are your top markets?
I mean, I would say, we are in the hundreds, I would say. We are right now in US, India, Mexico, Thailand, Southeast Asia, a couple of countries, Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, etc. Right? So we are in a few countries in Southeast Asia. But primarily Mexico, US, India is the other. So largely 4 buckets from a geography, or you could say 3 buckets like North America, where you can say Canada, US, Mexico, and India and Southeast Asia.
Is that a roughly even breakdown in terms of?
So India is largest as of now because we started with this market. So it's not an even breakdown as of now. India is by far the largest market, to our surprise, to be honest. We thought that India may be our first market, but the offtake may not be as high in India, just because of the labor cost dynamics that are there here. But I think there is, now we can understand, now that we have been with customers, etc. I think firstly, we are able to provide the product at a competitive price in India. The second is that it's not just about labor saving, to be honest, right? I think what factories need really is reliability, and you don't get that reliability with people in the loop. So if you are trying to, I mean, a very simple thing as the wrong product will get delivered to the places at times when people are doing it. Okay, and it never happens with a robot, right? A robot will never make a wrong delivery. So it's just that you have some errors don't get reduced, they get eliminated because you move to autonomous material movement, right? So I think that's a big thing that operations teams are always looking for, and also just this reliability. I mean, this is hard work, frankly, if you're doing it manually, it's boring work. So you will not get that consistency over the 8 hours of the shift also. I mean, you may get a certain amount of quality in the first 3-4 hours, and the last 3-4 hours will be very poor, or especially the night shift, where you will get very poor quality of everything. But if you are autonomous, you will get consistent quality throughout the shift, throughout the day, all day, all the week, all the year.
Any well-known customers that you're okay to name?
We are, I think, publicly, we have named customers like Forvia. I think in the US, they were kind enough to actually put out a video of the robots doing stuff in their factory in Indiana. So they're there. Hyundai, we published a case study also with them. So we have, and both are obviously very large companies, and we have all our customers, the 40-50 are all customers like this.
You spoke earlier on about some of the technologies and innovations that made you stand out. For example, they're completely autonomous, everything's built into the robots. That said, can you, to your mind, what would you say today are the innovations that help Ati stand out? I mean, and obviously you are looking at a global market.
Sure, yeah. So our 3D navigation stack has definitely still makes us stand out. I'm quite surprised that it does. We were thinking a lot of people will catch up, etc. But we were one of the first companies in the world to use a 3D LiDAR based navigation stack for industrial environments. So this was very common in automotive, but industries were always using 2D LiDARs, and just because a lot of the audience here will be general, think of a LiDAR as like a laser pointer on a motor spinning. So you have a plane, kind of like a disk of points, right? A plane of points coming to you. And typically these robots are very low lying, so you get, think of it like an ant's point of view that a robot sees, okay? And when you see an ant's point of view, it's pretty limited, right? And think of like how humans, when they stood up, they could see more of the world, right? You could see in 3 dimensions because your head kind of moves, you have stereo vision, so you see 3D as a human being anyways. And I think that's what our robots do. Our LiDARs are at a height, they see 3-dimensional, so we have many more beams of light going across, and we can see the world in 3 dimensions. And we then had our own algorithms, which were, and I think the smartness was, I mean, if you get a lot of data, then can you process it in real time and take action in real time, right? So it's not only about the data, right? The first thing is that you need to get the data in real time, but then you need to process and make sense of it in real time, right? So we were able to do very clever algorithms which took advantage of industrial environment specifically, and did these calculations in real time to say that, okay, I can figure out where I am with good accuracy without relying on any markers, etc. And because this algorithm became so generic and the approach was generic, we could suddenly go outdoor, indoor, ramps. I mean, these are all to do with seeing the world in 3 dimensions. So this was one big advantage that we brought to the fore. The other was that we built the vehicles ground up ourselves, and I think that also created I would say, the vehicles were very purpose built, so we could create very compact vehicles for the job that they were doing. Like our 1.5 ton tugger is the most compact such tugger in the world, right? So we were also able to do very, very purpose-built, especially in tugging. We did a lot of work with trolley safety, for example, right? Like because the traditional AMRs were all traditionally lifting kinds, then what people would do is they would repurpose it as a tugging AMR when they wanted to. And it was not really thought out as a tugging AMR, and it would not do the job very well. But because we started out as a tugging AMR, we could just do this job much better. The way we track our trolleys, the way we handle trolley kinematics, the way we have done the math, all of that just does a much, much better job.
So today, I mean, in startup jargon, would you say you're well past your product market fit for this family of products?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think for me, the thing about product market fit is clearly two things, which is, are you able to repeatedly sell to the same kind of customers again and again, right? It's not like you get a one-off customer of one kind all the time, right? And do it. And also, do the same customers keep buying more from you? Right. Unless I think the both things happen, it's not PMF. And when we have very good proof points of both the things, we have similar customers buying from us and the same customers repeatedly buying from us.
I wanted to ask you also, as an entrepreneur in this sort of umbrella concept of deep tech manufacturing in India. So doing this out of India and selling to customers in the biggest markets in the world and the most advanced markets, what have been some sort of pros and cons, top takeaways for you?
So, yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So usually we keep thinking, I don't like to think too much about the cons. I mean, we are always trying to think, how do we make doing this out of, say, Bangalore an advantage rather than a disadvantage, right? So I don't want to, crib about it. Oh, we are doing it from Bangalore, and would we be at a disadvantage compared to, say, a European or a Chinese or a American robotics startup? I mean, we are where we are, and how do we make where we are an advantage? And one big way in which we have been able to make it an advantage is that Bangalore is a great place to make such a company because of a few reasons. You have talent, the multidisciplinary talent that you need to do something like this. You get that in Bangalore. You have very good customers in Bangalore itself, and that really helps from a product management perspective to iterate the product very fast, right? I would say this is an advantage that probably even if, say, we were in California, you wouldn't have. Because California doesn't have this kind of industry, right? We actually have very good, strong manufacturing industry in Bangalore. Bangalore is not known for it, and that's a brand Bangalore problem, because Bangalore is so big on IT that it overshadows other things that are good about Bangalore. But Bangalore is a very old manufacturing and deep tech destination before actually IT, right? And that has helped us access customers and talent in Bangalore who understands this stuff very well, right? So that has been, in my opinion, an advantage. Then the very fortunately, this we hadn't planned for, but the two-wheeler, three-wheeler ecosystem of India, the electric two-wheeler, three-wheeler ecosystem of India has a lot of components which we are able to leverage. Okay. Now this kind of an ecosystem is there probably only in 3 or 4 markets in the world: India, China, Vietnam, Indonesia, maybe. Even Europe and US don't have this ecosystem, right? So they just don't have this advantage of co-creating or working with other partners who have very similar components. They're not exactly the same, so we have to work with them to change them a little bit and modify, right? So there is a co-R&D that we do with few of our partners. But that opportunity we have only because we do it in Bangalore. No one, apart from the 3-4 markets I told you, I don't think this is possible anywhere else in the world, right? Right. So there are a lot of advantages, I think, that come from doing it and that's how I like to think about it, right? And once you think about it like that, then we are a company with absolutely unique tailwind behind us, rather than thinking, okay, is there something that I mean we could have been better at, etc. Yeah, I mean that's I think not a very productive way of going about it.
Fair enough. If you just extend the this thought process on the ecosystem side of things, what are some areas which you would say is still work in progress?
In what way?
In terms of the maturity of the ecosystem that can support not just one Ati Motors, but many deep tech companies like Ati Motors.
Sure. So I would say one thing which we don't do in India as of now, it's not been a disadvantage so far, but has been sensors. Yeah, so sensors we don't do in India, right, at all. But many other things, as I said, because two-wheeler, three-wheeler company, electric vehicle companies don't need sensors like robots do, right? So we are able to leverage a lot of the EV part from India, the electric vehicle part of the thing that we do. But the sensor part, we still have to rely on partners outside. And which is okay. I don't think any one country will do everything. Finally, it's a global supply chain, right? I mean, and that's how we like to think about it. But it does help when, like I would definitely add, right? I mean, the Denmark ecosystem where a lot of the robotics is done, they have a great ecosystem of people doing sensors from ground up. The Odense area where MIR, UR, etc. have gotten developed, they've been able to create that kind of an ecosystem. And a very excellent robotics supply chain there in Denmark. I think that would be great to learn from and do a little more in Bangalore specifically.
So do you have companies out of Odense that you have to compete against?
Yeah, I mean MIR is the biggest one, for example, right? Yeah, I mean they are the biggest name in our space, and they were a pioneer in doing this, a company I mean that we respect.
Okay, so can you now talk a bit about the roadmap for Ati over the next couple of years?
So, I mean, I think we just need to put out thousands of robots. I think hundreds is just a beginning, and I think it's not about us only doing it. I think overall for the manufacturing industry, by the way, the robots are new. Okay, this is the first time manufacturing sector is buying any kind of automation which goes anywhere in the plant. Typically, automation has a place where it stays. There are trained and approved personnel who interact with that automation. Okay, and that's not changed for the last 150 years of manufacturing, or I would say automation kind of manufacturing may be 100-year-old or whatever, right? That thing has not changed. With these vehicles, this thing breaks for the first time.
Right.
Where there is a kind of automation which goes anywhere, and it's not an equipment that the guy is carrying, right? It's just going out on his own. Anybody can interact with it, right? And this is something which the industry also is trying to figure out and trying to understand how do we. As yet, there are no owners of mobile robots in factories. Right, so typically it will go to, I mean, material movement is with logistics, say, right? So now sometimes the logistics team will take over robots, but logistics team has never handled automation. So they need to skill differently, handle these things differently. The exceptions they are used to is the guy didn't turn up, and they know how to handle that. A guy, or maybe a guy had an emergency at home and he left midday. They handle these kind of exceptions all day. But what do you do with exceptions on the robot? That is not the natural thing that team is used to handling. So there are a lot of things that the industry also needs to figure out, and there's change management. So it's a joint thing. I mean, it's our job to help them do it. I mean, as a startup, there's something that we are working on. But as an industry, the industry also needs to, and I think they want to, by the way. But we can see in the industry also, customers are at various stages of adoption. There are people who are like, well, this thing should work, I should not want to change anything. And there are people who are like, yeah, we have tried this, it has not worked, but help us with what should we do to become successful with this technology, right? So there are all kinds of customers out there, and there are those sophisticated ones also we see who have actually figured out, okay, we know, we now have the SOPs to make these robots work, can I buy more from you, right? So there are people in all shades of the spectrum.
One thing I meant to ask earlier on when you were talking about the sophistication of your robots. I mean, in autonomous mobility, people talk about different levels of autonomy. Is that something that applies to these robots, and what level would they be currently?
Sure. So typically those are the automotive engineering
Terms.
terms. And we used to, in fact, when we started out, we also thought that this level 4, level 5 or whatever, level 3, but those are terms which are very specific to automotive. They don't apply to industrial robots at all because, for example, level 3 basically means that a driver can take over, right? Those are ADAS systems. They will run on their own, but a driver should be ready to grab the wheel. But here there is no driver, so the word becomes very meaningless, right? Or level 4, for example, means that you can, I mean, in certain conditions, you can even pull over and park. But this pull over kind of dynamics is not required in factories, right? So I think it doesn't apply. In short answer.
So, outside of the whole frenzy over generative AI and all of that, in the world of robotics, give us a layperson's understanding of what is happening in AI.
Yeah, oh sure. So the next thing which, I mean, and we are also keenly watching it, is people are, and that's something in a way common to autonomous road driving and these type of vehicles. I think it'll happen eventually. It's just about when. Is fully end-to-end learning-based networks which are doing the driving, right? So today you have, I mean, you will have a perception system where there's a lot of AI already, right? So perception systems are the first systems like your camera, etc., kind of stuff, right? Or even other stuff like LiDAR. So we have a lot of neural networks which are analyzing data which comes from that and do some intelligent stuff. So perception systems have a lot of AI. Then your but the other systems are more classical control, which are deciding how the navigation happens, for example, right? Or there are the safety layer, which is also more classical. And then there is, yeah, and then there is localization, which is also more probabilistic mathematics, etc. But in, at least the vision is that over time, all these systems will collapse into one large neural network, which will do everything, okay? People are already in the world of humanoids, etc., or in quadrupeds, people are doing a lot of reinforcement learning based control kind of work. So the control layer has completely moved from classical control algorithms to RL based control algorithms in the case of legged robots, okay? But wheeled robots are still with classical mostly. One reason is that I don't think the RL based stuff outperforms the classical in this case. This is pretty good already, but in wheeled robots, the classical stuff was not doing as good a job as the new RL based stuff is doing. So there is a lot more advantage to doing that. But there may just be advantage of just one network approach may just collapse the kind of development that you need to do around these things. The amount of source code that you need to run this kind of things will all shrink, in my opinion. But a lot more work will be needed around data engineering, data collection, data annotation, training. That work will increase by a huge margin. So, I mean, work will go from one place to another. That's kind of what will happen.
And for the folks who might be interested in these kinds of information, can you give us a quick snapshot of Ati today? How many people on your team, well-known investors, latest on the funding and things like that? Anything else you want to highlight?
Sure. So we've I mean, right after COVID 2021, our first major institutional funding happened with Bloom and Xfinity in India. Before that, we had raised a seed round, by the way, with Village Global much earlier from the Bay Area. So our first funding did happen from the Bay Area itself with Village. Then Bloom and Xfinity did the pre-series A with us, 21. Then we did the Series A round with True Ventures leading the round, and Athira in Bangalore also joining the round. So those two investors came on board in that round. And we recently closed our Series B in January, $20 million round with Walden and Nokia, NGP leading the round. So yeah, so we've raised roughly 37 million so far. Across all these rounds, with the latest round being the 20 million round we did 4 or 5 months ago.
And today, overall, how many?
And we are around 200-ish people overall. we do our own manufacturing. So yeah, so we have our manufacturing team, supply chain, service. Also, we do ourselves. Sales, solutioning, engineering. Within engineering, we have our own mechanical engineering, electronics, robotics, control, perception, localization, cloud team which does fleet management, remote monitoring, etc. Yeah, deployment manager that we have, right? So I mean, all the technologies typically you would think of, we probably use one or the other of them. Even the Gen AI stuff gets used somewhere in the analytics side, etc., where there is data that you need to understand, etc., from the analytics side. I don't think we've shipped it as yet, but I think that will also come soon. So there's no Gen AI. On the robot side, I don't think Gen AI is very relevant, except as a translation layer. In case you want the instructions to the robot to be translated into something, I think Gen AI could be an interesting way to do it, which people are talking about, this visual language action models, right? So there's a combination of Gen AI and other stuff. Those are interesting things to consider. But otherwise, there is interpreting the data that is coming from the robot. Definitely, Gen AI has a good role to play.
Okay, as we begin to wrap up, sort of a standard question. If you look at the markets that are most attractive to you, where you want to expand in the coming quarters and so on, what would you say are your top challenges? And on the flip side, what might be your top priorities, things that need to get done quickly?
I mean, no challenge. I mean, just that we are having to focus. The thing is, the demand and need for these products are ubiquitous and worldwide, right? So the faster we go out everywhere, the better it is for us. So we are really, I think, also trying to prioritize, right? I mean, you go deeper into a few markets and then start expanding. That's kind of the approach we are taking. Otherwise, I mean, there's no reason, say, to not to go into Europe very quickly, or to say Japan or South Korea, right? I mean, those are very large markets where we are not going into today. But yeah, so I think those are things that we need to work out. I think we need to maybe do a better job of channel strategy so that we can do a better GTM through partners. I think that's something that we have not done so far, and it was a conscious choice. We also did not want layers between the customer and us to make sure that the product feedback loop was very tight. And it's a new product. We want to make sure that we learn from our customers as much as we can without any layers in the middle. But I think we have enough customers now from whom we can learn. And now we want to add GTM partners who can make sure that they can take our product. But for that, we may also need to work on enabling tooling around the robot, because I think once you use it yourself, the flip side of this is, because our own people do all the deployment management of the robots, some of the tools may be a little more clunky rather than because there are no outside parties using our tools to deploy and manage. So that's something that I think we'll fix pretty quickly. So I think that's something that we'll do to make sure that we can go out faster with partners.
Okay, your top points in terms of advice for aspiring deep tech entrepreneurs, especially the hardware focused ones in India?
I mean, I think too soon for me to give advice to people. We have just
You come this far.
Yeah, but I think I really genuinely feel we have just started. Frankly, I think it's been 8 years and it feels to me that I just started yesterday, right? And not just in terms of how excited am I for the next few years, but generally, I mean, there's just so much more to do, okay? And we have learned a lot, and it still feels like we just need to do so much more, learn so much more. So I think, but having said that, I mean, not to duck the question. I would say first be prepared that it is very hard. There are a lot of things to do. There's a lot of complexity at low volume, which can get to you. And I see, I mean, I speak to founders all the time in this space, and many of them wisely then decide, okay, maybe we'll do only some part of the puzzle rather than the whole of it. Doing the whole of it is quite challenging for the number of things you have to do and the number of expertise that needs to come together to get this done. So doesn't mean other people shouldn't do it, but I mean, beware and don't get caught off guard. Don't underestimate, I mean, that physics is, when physical world is involved, things are very, very tough. Doing things at low volume sometimes is harder than at high volume, because you will get the right kind of partners, vendors who are willing to work with you at higher volume. But at lower volume, you will get vendors who are not so good, whereas you need the best vendors at that time to handhold you, because you yourself are not so good, right? But it works actually the opposite way. You are small, your vendors are small, both are inexperienced, and together you will not get the desired outcome, right? So those are, I think, things to really be watchful of. Don't take even a screw for granted. This is really one of the places where, for want of a nail, the kingdom can be lost.